Do we know how to pronounce Betsy's last name? Public comment.
No, but she does not appear to be here either.
I'll give it a good old-fashioned Yelm try if she comes on.
So Chair, we are live now.
Okay, and it's 8:30, and we have a quorum, and it's October. So let's get rolling with another fun-filled meeting of the Thurston Regional Planning Council. Welcome, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. We will, and there I was, all ready to go. There it is. So we'll call the meeting to order. And as our habit, we'll go through introductions. And I'll just call down the name of the member, and whomever is representing that could, there we go. Good timing. So who do we have from Lacey today?
Malcolm Miller, Lacey City Council.
Very good. Oh, and folks, you know what would be very helpful? I keep forgetting to ask you this. If you could go to the rename function and aside your name, put the organization that you represent, that might help, especially with newer people who might not know who you are just by your name. Although you are famous in your own mind, as am I. City of Olympia. City of Rainier.
Dennis McVeigh, Rainier Council member.
Morning. City of Tenino.
Sorry,
Should we continue, Vina?
we can continue. I was just checking on Facebook and doing a
Okay.
backup.
City of Tenino. Okay, no cutter. City of Tumwater.
Debbie Sullivan, council member.
Great. City of Yelm, well, that'd be me. Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation. Nisqually Tribe. Town of Bucota. Thurston County. North Thurston Public Schools.
Dean Martinolich, attending for Miss Gretchen.
Thank you, Dean. Olympia School District, right above you on my screen.
Hi, Hillary from the Olympia School Board.
Tumwater School District. Intercity Transit.
Mel Murray, Tumwater School District, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Mel. I knew you were there. How about IT?
Hi, Carolyn Cox, representing Intercity Transit.
Lot Clean Water Alliance.
Cynthia Pratt.
Port of Olympia. Is he the
Zeta, Port of Olympia, Commissioner, District 3.
PUD?
Chris Stearns, Thurston PUD, District 3, Commissioner.
And we have some associate members. I'll run through those as well. Lacey Fire District 3.
Sylvia Roberts, here for Rick Kelly.
Puget Sound Regional Council. Oh, I have to do this now every time I say Puget Sound Regional Council.
I'm here too.
Thank you. The Evergreen State College.
Morgan, Evergreen.
Thurston Conservation District. Thurston EDC.
Good morning, Michael Cade.
Morning, Michael. And Timberland Regional Library.
Good morning, Cheryl Haywood.
And I also saw another Yelm person. Pat, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Pat Hughes. I'm city engineer for the city of Yelm, but I also serve on the technical advisory committee for TRPC.
Thanks, Pat. Good morning.
Good morning.
And then I hope I haven't missed anybody, but Mark, could you introduce staff?
I will. And so you just heard from Patrick Hughes from Yelm. From Lacey, we have Martin Hoppy. From Thurston County, we have Teresa Parsons. From Intercity Transit, Jessica Gould. From City of Olympia, Joyce Phillips. And from TRPC, we have myself, Mark Daly, Vina Tabbitt, Karen Parkhurst, Berlina Lucas, Scott Carty, Dave Reed, Amy Hatch-Winnica, Katrina Van Every, and Theresa Julius. And that's who, oh, and there's one other, Lori Lebowski, and I am not placing that name with an organization. Lori?
Lori, you want to tell us who you are?
Actually, I'm Jason Gibbons with WashDOT, filling in for Lori Lebowski.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you for the introductions and welcome everybody. The first order of business is the approval of today's agenda.
Move to approve. Zeta.
That was Zeta. Second,
Second.
anybody?
Hillary.
Hillary seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to our agenda? Good. Then we move on to the consent calendar, which was sent out as part of your packet. It's the minutes and the vouchers and the RTIP
Move approval of the consent calendar.
by Mr. McVeigh.
This is Debbie Sullivan. I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair Foster, this is Berlina. There was an amendment to the minutes. Mark, did you?
Yes, sorry about that. Chair Foster, we were notified that Commissioner Gary Edwards, he was late to the last meeting, but not absent. And so we needed to amend to add that Commissioner Edwards was present. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll take another vote to, the motion would be to accept the amended minutes.
So moved.
This is Debbie. I second that one.
Moved by McVeigh, seconded by Sullivan. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll keep an eye on the attendees now to see if Commissioner Edwards sneaks in the back door again. We'll make sure it gets on the minutes this time. So that gets us to our public comment period. I don't see we have any attendees, and all of you are here for the regular meeting, so we can move past the public comment period, which gets us right into our first presentation discussion by Mark about the council retreat follow-up. And I'm glad to see Amy is here as well.
So yes, thank you. And actually you get a break from hearing from me this morning on this one. Folks will remember that at the retreat, our facilitator, Amy Lineker, committed to a follow-up to come back to council and talk about, check in on how we're doing on implementing what we talked about at the retreat. And so actually I'm gonna hand it over to Amy to facilitate this conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I hope that you thought it was good news when you saw that I was coming back. That's always my goal. So here's what I've got for you today. In our limited time together, my hope is that we can circle back on all the great work that you did 60 days ago and finalize the vision, mission, and values. When I left you at the retreat, you had some edits and some feedback. And so Mark and his team have incorporated those. And so today is our chance to say, did we get it right? Can we finalize those three things? Assuming we can, and I believe that we can, then what I'd like to do is spend the bulk of my time with you, helping you to operationalize your values. How do we take those values from words and put them into behaviors that are measurable and observable? And then finally, I have one recommendation that I have seen work really well for other organizations, and I wanted to share that with you before our time ends today. So how does that sound? Does this sound like a good use of time? Or at least an agreeable use of time? Okay, so let's dive in. Regarding the vision, and Mark, thank you for being there if I need any support, because I know that you and your team helped with these edits. What I have for you on the screen is the vision as it was written, and then also the two edits that were submitted. So you can see the first one deleted in one generation, and then the second one deleted the word achieve. So thank you to everyone who took the time to offer feedback on the vision. And I would love to see if now you can consider this vision your final. And Chair, I wondered if you could take the vote because you did that so well before. Can I just delegate that part to you? Because that was impressive.
Amy,
sorry, go,
could I
Mark.
interject one piece
Yes,
before? Because
please.
I just wanted to let folks know that I got some anecdotal feedback on the vision from a number of folks. And what I heard was, yes, it is long. And yet I heard from a number of people, yes, it's long, but it really hits the mark on what our vision for the future is. And so folks had difficulty looking at it and saying, well, what would I take out of that? There was some discussion about, well, could it just be that first line? The Thurston region will become a model for sustainability and livability. But then in speaking with people, there was concern that, well, what does that really mean? Sustainability and livability. Well, it means the rest of what that vision states. And so I just wanted to note that because I did hear that from a number of people, that recognition that it's a lengthy vision statement, but that it really does hit the mark for what we're looking for the future of this region.
Thank you, Mark.
And I would like to add in, though, that if you take the time to read this, it really does represent the whole of what we do or try to do. And I would suggest if there's nothing that you would absolutely have to take out of this because it's just wrong, that we can live with this quite comfortably. And I really appreciate that it has the word foster in it. So thank you for that, Mark. I appreciate that. So Amy, would you like some more discussion from the team, or do we need an actual vote, Mark, or do we just do a consensus thumbs up?
This would be one that we would like to get a vote on.
Okay, so let's have some more discussion. If there's any, I'll pull up my participants to see if any hands go up. I think we've had some pretty good discussion about this already. Zita, I see your hand.
I think it looks great. It's been through a few iterations. I think it's terrific for all the reasons Mark said.
Outstanding. Then I would entertain a motion.
This is Carolyn, and I move to approve the vision.
Second the motion, Zita.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have our vision. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're off to a good start. I want to dance, but we've got 2 more to go. So I'm not gonna get ahead of myself here. So here is the second piece of work. This was around the mission, and there was one edit that was made. Mark, did you have any anecdotal edits you wanted to share on the mission?
No, on this one, folks will remember when we talked about this at the last council meeting, people were pretty comfortable with this already. So I just didn't hear a lot of feedback on this. I think folks thought we were about there.
Great, thank you. So Chair, I'll turn it over to you.
We're good. Thank you again. Is there any pre-discussion before I entertain a motion? Very good. Then we would entertain a motion.
This is Debbie Sullivan. I move to accept the mission as presented.
Second.
Who was the second? That was Chris Stearns on the second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. 2 for 2 so far, Amy.
No, this is okay. Here we go. Values. At the retreat, as a group, you'll remember that you came up with 5 values that you believed were at the core of this organization. And those 5 values were accountability, integrity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, sustainability, and then collaboration. The edits that you see on the screen are those that were received. Mark, do you have any anecdotal thoughts on this one or feedback?
Yeah, the only thing I'd note on this one is this was the only place where we had a little bit of conflicting suggestions, and that is on the first one, accountability. There was one suggestion to move equitable and objective to the first part of the description. And there was another suggestion that equitable should be deleted here in accountability because it appears in other places in the values. And so what I've reflected here is moving equitable to the beginning of the description, and yet there may be discussion about whether that word needs to be there or not.
Great, thanks, Mark. Chair, can I turn it over to you to invite any feedback or conversation before the vote?
We are open for discussion, and I see Cynthia Pratt.
So that was my comment, and I just think we cannot reduce the need to make sure that we highlight equitable for accountability. Accountability goes beyond just being objective and stuff. I think you have to keep the equity in mind.
Thank you.
And
Hillary?
Mr.
ahead,
Chair, I
Mark.
was just going to comment on one other piece, which was on the diversity, equity, and inclusion. The other kind of anecdotal piece of feedback I got was on this idea of the addition of systemic racism to that value statement, and is that really broad enough? Because we're talking the discussion was we're looking to address things like racism, like ageism, discrimination about people and their abilities. So that the question that I got was, is this broad enough in that description of that value?
Any comments on that? Hillary?
Yeah, I'm going to be the person who maybe derails the perfect score so far. Amy, apologies now. I just don't feel comfortable adopting a vision for diversity or values for diversity, equity, inclusion with the process we've gone through. So this is the very beginnings of a equity statement from an intermunicipal collaborative entity. And when other organizations go through making statements about equity, there's a lot more conversation and relational work that happens. And so I realized, I think in our last meeting, I probably voted with the group and said, yes, we can send our edits to Mark, and I communicated to Mark that I just, as I thought more about it, I felt like that's just not the right way to write this particular value. We have pretty good alignment amongst the members on the other pieces of this puzzle, but we don't have great alignment yet on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I don't even know if that's allowed for us to say we're going to adopt the other values and put together a subcommittee to work on this and to really listen to our members and our community and to think about what the scope of work that TRPC does and so therefore what our diversity, equity, inclusion values should look like. But that would be my strong recommendation, is to pull this off and vote on the other values and think about a way to do this work that is more inclusive and gives us time to listen to each other and to try and craft a value statement that everyone can really support. So that would be my suggestion. And for what it's worth, I think you do need to explicitly address racism. It's really, really easy for people to speak generally, but what that ends up doing is watering down the foundational inequity in this country, which is systemic racism and systematized genocide.
Thank you, Hillary. And we'll revisit your concern here after the discussion, and we'll probably do that in the form of a motion for that. I'm thinking Cynthia was first and then Debbie.
So I agree I actually want actually like it in here, but I agree that that systemic racism should be called out. But, you know, we cover a lot of transportation issues, and that covers more than just race, disabilities, age, this kinds of things. And you know, I keep going back to the fact that people with disabilities particularly have a hard time if we don't account for those kinds of issues as well as others. And that's what diversity means in my opinion. So equity is one thing, but diversity is a wider issue. So whoever had suggested that it may be too narrow, I wouldn't get rid of address systemic racism, but I would call out, or at least say such as, or such as da, da, da.
Thank you. Debbie?
I hear what Hillary is saying. However, I think that we could have a subcommittee and update it at a later time. I think it's valuable to keep this in here now so that we recognize this from the very beginning, and those from outside that look at our organization and see this as our value. We can rewrite it as we choose, have a subcommittee as we choose, but I think it's just very important that we keep this in our values to make sure that we say to the outside world that this is a very large value to us, and we can just fix it and update it at a later date.
Thank you for the go ahead, Dennis.
Not on this one. I want to make a comment on our sustainability sentence, if we're ready to do that.
Let me check in with Carolyn, who had her hand up, and if she's not on this topic, we'll go back to you. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, I am on the topic, and I too hear what Hillary is saying, and I'm trying to marry that up with how you say this in a sentence or two. And so I'm wondering whether if the group feels like we need to do deeper work on this, where that might live. Because I'm not seeing how we're going to do much more than what's there in the two sentences that we get for a value statement.
Well, we'll soon see what the group thinks about Hillary's concept, but hold on just a minute. I want to make sure that we've talked about the whole thing before we move on to a motion, if that's okay. And so we'll go with Dennis and then Hillary again.
I have a comment about our sustainability paragraph in there. It troubles me that we say things like this, but we aren't actually following through. And I say that from experience, as I was the chair of the Sustainable Thurston Project. We spent lots of money and lots of time talking about providing sustainability for Thurston County and our region. Yet as I drive around Thurston County, especially North Thurston, I see several large tracts of very good agricultural land being covered with houses or turned into parks. They don't have anything to do with sustainability. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm going to miss Spooner's strawberries, but also over in the Black Lake area where there used to be some small gardens that supported our farmers market and our local markets. It's all now being covered with pavement and houses. So I don't know if we really have the right to talk about sustainability since we don't practice it.
Thank you for the comment. Hillary?
I can wait since Scott hasn't spoken yet.
Okay,
so
thank you for that. Scott?
Okay, I was hoping that Hillary would clarify something, but anyway, inspired a little bit by what Dennis said, I see these as value statements. And also, I think if I understood what Hillary was saying, these are just directional markers. We want to move this direction. The real challenge is how do we do that work? How do we integrate it into our monthly conversations and decision-making? And I think that that's where the work groups can get in. And to Hillary's statement, we really do need to bring in a large stakeholder community to help us understand how to address diversity and equity in our planning and our decisions. And the same thing with sustainability. I've been doing that for 11 years. It is enormously complex and complicated and very, very difficult to do. And so I really wouldn't encourage spending a lot of time trying to wordsmith these statements, but absolutely interested in seeing us dig into details on how do we make these statements a reality of some sort.
And I will exercise the role of the chair to say that the work program subcommittee meets after this, and I can guarantee you that we will be looking through the lens of our mission, vision, and values as we review the work before the TRPC and make sure that it is trying to achieve what we've got down here on paper. And this is a guideline, as Scott just said. We still have a lot of work to do, as Dennis has pointed out. Hillary?
Do we want to I'm fine going after everybody who hasn't spoken yet gets a chance to speak. So
That's fine. Sometimes I see it as a segue from one part of the conversation to the other. So why don't you jump in there and then we'll go over to Chris.
Okay, so the one thing that I would say is really important for us to keep in mind, I absolutely agree, this needs to be short, it needs to be succinct. But when we're speaking about issues as critical as diversity, equity, inclusion, every single word is important. Every single word carries meaning for the individual members and groups in our community that we, with our limited experiences, can't possibly understand. And all of them. I mean, we may understand some of them. And so I guess I would say that there is a danger in saying the wrong thing because we feel a sense of urgency about saying something. And I also think our work is not hindered by taking 2 months to not adopt the values and waiting to adopt them in full once we've had time to listen and look through this piece and think about speaking in ways that open the door for engagement rather than closing the door to communities that we want to deeply engage with around policy making and decision making. So I'm not proposing making a motion, but I agree that adopting a set of values without diversity, equity, inclusion in them may look rather short-sighted for some of our communities. And so I would also say maybe the right solution is to not adopt values today and to do the additional work we need to do on diversity, equity, inclusion to make sure that every single word we're using has the purpose of opening doors rather than closing them. So that would be my feeling.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. Just want to point out too, like Dennis, I worked on Sustainable Thurston. I was the water chair and the only elected official on that committee, as I recall, was all staff. What I wanted to say about sustainability is I've always been an advocate for examining the capacity of our water resources, especially in the unbuilt areas of our county, in the rural areas and in the South County, where many unincorporated towns exist, et cetera. And what I'm concerned about is they don't have the same amount of water resources sitting underneath them like the North County does. It's not 2,000 foot aquifers, it's more like 600 or less. So I'm concerned that those resources will get depleted over time. They've not been adequately studied, and they're very shallow in terms of easy to pollute. So I want to make sure that people remember these things when we face these issues in the future, because it is a situation that needs attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any other discussion on the topic of values? And then I'll make some recommendations for appropriate motions. So giving the right of first refusal to Hillary, we could entertain a motion that would either, I think you were interested in either removing the diversity for work on that separately, or to move the vote on the entire values to a later time. Would you like to make either of those motions?
I guess I would be interested if there's one motion that the group would support more than the other. Either one is fine with me, but I just can't support adopting the values with the current definition of diversity, equity, inclusion. So, and I don't think putting something out that is not as carefully crafted as it needs to be, I think that could actually harm our work in this area if we rush to put something out because we feel like we need to say something instead of saying the right thing. So I don't know. If anybody else has a strong feeling about it, I would support that motion.
I would move that we would hold off on adopting the values for the moment and see what can happen if we recraft these values. Maybe we can, revisit this in 30 to 60 days.
Right. The motion is to not approve the values today, not accept the values statement today, but come back in 30 days. So we'll need a second on that.
I second.
From Hillary. Any further discussion on this particular motion? Mark?
Mr. Chair, I would just, so you mentioned the work program committee that's meeting after this. And we as staff anticipated that there would be continued work on this. And so there is in our draft work program that we'll be presenting to the subcommittee after this meeting, a modest budget, $10,000, really to support primarily my staff time in facilitating a subcommittee if one was necessary to work on any part of what we are discussing today. And so if there is willingness and energy to form a subcommittee around finalizing, perfecting these value statements and finalizing, there is an opportunity for staff to support that. I'm just not sure 30 days is going to get us there, because we would need to form a subcommittee, meet, and bring an alternate proposal back. So I think that would be probably more like the meeting after next sort of bring back.
Okay. So first off, let's just see a show of hands. How many people would be interested in serving on that committee? And we'll say time indeterminate. So I see Malcolm, Chris, Hillary, and perhaps others can join. We won't lock it in. And I would entertain, since we're sort of a loose, we don't have to follow Roberts exactly every time, but we could just add a friendly amendment that 60 days would be appropriate for review. And Mark is nodding and Amy's like good with that. So the motion as it stands to the group now is to remove the values from today's, not approve the values, but we have already approved the mission and vision. So we would take the values to a work group that will form, and 60 days from now we'll bring back their work to the council for their consideration. And that motion was seconded. Is the second happy with the friendly amendment that we applied to 60 days?
I am. Thank you for checking, Chair.
You're welcome. Is there any further discussion on this? Zita?
I just want to thank Mark for improving the diversity, equity, and inclusion value statement. We had a lot of discussion about it over the last few months, and I think He has really improved it, and I think he's done a great job. And thank you, Mark.
Agreed.
Thank you. I can't take credit for the amendments though, but thank you nonetheless, Commissioner Zeta.
Well, thanks to all the staff who contributed to that. You've done a lot of work on it, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
I'm just super impressed with these slides that have the little lines going everywhere and showing that they're tracking. That's some cool stuff right there. With no further discussion, your yes vote would be to remove values from today's approval and move it 60 days. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We have carried that through. Thank you for the continued discussion, and yeah, good work. Thank you for bringing that up, Hillary. So we'll be back to Amy.
Great, thank you. And you beat me to it because I was going to thank Hillary as well, because what we know is that we can't live into what we can't name and describe. And so one of the most important things that you can do as an organization is really name and describe what these values mean to you. As that subgroup starts to do their work, I can share a process that's worked for hundreds of organizations as you're thinking about, well, how do I do this next step? One way that you can do it is you can think about having an individual who's willing to be a facilitator for each of those 5 values. And then you create them into we statements. So now that we've got, let's say, for example, we've met the 60-day mark, the value statements have been approved. Now let's transition that into we statements. So when it comes to accountability, what's the behavior that we do? We fill in the blank. And the group starts to decide what actually does accountability look like. And you would go through and you would do that for each of your 5 values. When you use the we statement, then it helps you use those values to help you make decisions. If there are multiple places that you can go and there's good arguments to be made on both sides, then those operational statements can help us know, well, what is the right thing to do? The last thing that I would share, because I want to make sure we stay on time, is that you may find as a team that at some point you may observe a value that's not being demonstrated. And you may see that, gosh, that doesn't look like accountability to me, or maybe we're really not being sustainable in the way that we said we would. My recommendation is to live into these values while you're addressing that issue. So how do you have a conversation that maybe we're not living into our values quite the way we wanted to, but how do you do that from a place of integrity? How do you do that from a place of shared accountability? So it's not about shame or blame or about things that could disconnect this council. It's about using your shared values to create that container so that you can do the work that you all care about. That was my whole, so we were 2 for 3. And frankly, I think that's a win, because here's why. If we had been 3 for 3 without 100% commitment, we would have defeated the whole purpose. And so the fact that you're willing to keep digging in says to me that you're living into these other values. Being willing to keep digging is holding yourselves accountable and having a high amount of integrity. And I'm just thrilled that I got to spend some time with you. So thank you for having me. Mark, anything else for me?
No, I just want to say from a staff perspective, I couldn't agree more on the 2 for 3. We are more than happy to dig into this issue. And actually, even if we had approved it, we're still digging into these issues because we are still learning and figuring out what it means to live these values. And so I'm completely satisfied with where we ended up today. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy, very much. This was a great exercise for us all. And what I really like about this, and I have liked about TRPC for all the years that I've been on it, is this is how we do this regionally. We are so able to do this as humans, and I really appreciate everybody's consideration and respect for one another during these discussions. We do have 3 volunteers to be on the committee. If you're also interested on serving on that, please get a hold of Mark. And then staff will send out a doodle poll to get that all arranged, or some kind of polling device. All right, thank you. Bye, Amy.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for your time.
And we actually are 1 minute ahead of schedule. That's awesome. So we're now going to have Scott and Theresa are going to talk about the electric vehicles.
Yes, I just want to say quickly, give you guys a quick thank you for letting us step in this morning and give you a quick tour of the new addition to the State of Our Transportation System page, which is all about electric vehicles. And it's a snapshot in time of the state of electric vehicles in this county. And Theresa has done a lot of great work collecting data and putting some information together for the page. And I'm going to hand it off to her so she can show you what we've got put together.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, I should be sharing my screen at this point. So good morning. We are here, as Scott said, to preview our State of Transportation System website new electric vehicle section. And the purpose of the State of the Transportation System web pages is to provide a snapshot of current conditions of topics of interest. That's repeating what Scott said. And we did a point in time overview of the state of electric vehicles in Thurston County. And this is just going to be a taste of the information available on the subject. A deeper dive is definitely warranted. And we have an electric vehicle plan scheduled in the 2022 work program, the UPWP. So I'm going to show you a lot of information and won't have time to cover everything. So feel free to review it at your leisure and provide feedback. So you can see here's our State of Transportation website, and then electric vehicles is over here. So why it matters, this begins with the importance of the electric vehicle adoption in relation to the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. And electric vehicles are one of the many strategies to meet greenhouse gas reduction goals. So right here, we pretty much highlight our work on the Climate Mitigation Plan. You can go right there. And we also talked to the Climate Action Steering Committee on Monday. So they have actually already seen this and provided a little feedback. We have lots of information on the topic. So up here is a nice learn more on about why electric vehicles matter, some hydrogen fuel, which is kind of an adjacent topic, and electric charging information. So as we move through, we have kind of a point in time electric vehicle population and broken down by types of electric vehicles. We have the battery electric vehicles and then the plug-in electric vehicles. And so this is the whole registration and registration of vehicles. And here's our resource from the state. It's a low number, but it has increased, and that's a little bit farther down. And this section right here actually is a really good primer for what electric vehicles are. We have a nice graphic that Sarah clipped out for us on what a battery electric vehicle is versus a plug-in hybrid that has a hybrid, which has a gas component to the plug-in, and then a hybrid electric vehicle, which has a battery, but there's no plug-in available. So these are the electric vehicles, and this is not an electric vehicle. That's kind of a good explanation. I learned a lot working on this. So moving through, we continue, and like I said, resources everywhere. There's more information than is possibly available to put on our website. In depth, a little bit better on vehicle registration. And as it has changed year over year, these were January. And Sarah put a fabulous graphic here to really describe what a plug-in electric hybrid and versus a battery electric hybrid, and see how these have changed over time. And then as we move through, we go and see electric vehicles in the state. This is all electric vehicles combined, but just the same as we saw in Thurston County, electric vehicles have been growing registration-wise over the state. And then charging stations. So we did a level 2 and 3 electric vehicle charging station inventory. This was for public stations only, not private. So if you have a plug-in for a fleet or in your house or behind a gate somewhere that's locked, those were not counted. This was only level 2, not the level 1, such as what's available at your grocery store to plug in while you're courtesy parking or something like that. There's way too many to even try to inventory these. And the map is, you can click on this map and go opens up the map. It's just an overview of charging stations. Electric vehicle owner community does a much better job of keeping track of their stations. They're really in the thick of it because they're the ones trying to charge and get around. And so they get into much more detail about availability and performance and function of the electric vehicle stations and maintenance issues. So we just kind of have a snapshot of what's going on here. And some information about what your hour of charging is going to get you per level. And then, as you might have followed, there was quite a bit of action in the 2021 legislative session on electric vehicles. So there's a little just right here, a snippet. Karen put together a pretty good overview if you go into to learn more about what bills were passed, what things they were addressing, and how they went through the session. So just some charging information, rules for new residential, studies on e-bikes and public fleets getting electrified, and pilot exemption on hydrogen fuel cells. So there's lots of stuff that happened. So you can definitely dig deeper into that. And the next steps, this is kind of the most important part because this is a new technology and more questions than answers that we actually have. So as the electric vehicle adoption grows, there's going to be an increase in demand for charging stations and household charging stations. And this is coming with new challenges. So we actually talked with the local planners and they brought up another questions and concerns they've been thinking about. So they had just a little snippet of stuff that they were asking us about or wanted to know more information on was infrastructure availability. So if you have a demand for an EV, but your electrical box can't take it, you know, how do we get more electricity there or upgrade it or whatever needs to happen? How fast is this going to be anticipation growth? It's moving, but how quickly? What are the charging habits of residents? Do they need chargers at home? They need easier access to chargers at home, or do they need them public chargers? Conflicts with ADA. So if there's anything in the public right of way, is there going to be people tripping over cords, or what's kind of other safety concerns there are? Equity issues related to charging station sightings or just availability. If you have someone who is a renter and they don't have a garage that they can charge in, where can they charge? Can they charge at their rental complex or whatever they can do? And then differences in regulation. So they were had some questions about what might be public right of way versus private property and what other communities do. So to address all these kind of questions that we've been kind of building up, we have identified the need in the 2022 UPWP to develop an electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle plan. Cal-SOCIACUM Council of Governments, the RTPO just south of us, did a plan and they adopted it last year. And so we might do something kind of similar to that. I have a link to that on the bottom of our resources. So you can kind of get a taste of what might be coming up. So resources, there's so many. You could actually just have a website just crammed full of resources, but just as a little snippet of funding, what installation costs might be, federal, local, state and resource, some plans. Here's the Cal-SOCIACUM plan down here if you want to look at it. And then of course the Washington State electric vehicle plan. So Scott, did you have anything else that you wanted to add at this time?
No, great job, Theresa. I would just say we're very interested in hearing your thoughts on the subject. And if there are additions or changes to this page that we can do to make it more informative, please let us know. We're really interested in gathering thoughts on what should go into the plan. So we'd like to hear some discussion from you on that.
Okay, so if you have any questions, would you like me to stop sharing?
Yes, go ahead and stop sharing so we can see each other a little bit better. And we'll start with Chris.
Thanks. I noticed that the Washington State employees fleet has grown with the amount of electric vehicles and other types of vehicles in its capacity to serve the state. And since it's headquartered here, I'm sure that they've put some time perhaps to identify proper charging stations. Have you guys interfaced with the state's fleet managers on how electric vehicles will be recharged for them?
That's something that we'll do as part of the plan. For this process, there wasn't a lot of outreach to that group, but that is something that we plan on doing.
Yeah, I just note that even on alternative fuels like hydrogen, which we were approached to do by Douglas PUD, which is putting in a hydrogen project for its hydroelectric dam, Wells Dam. They have already reached out, I think, to the private sector in locating somewhere in the Lewis, Thurston County area. So I know a hydrogen station is going in due to them. And so, you know, things are coming.
Thanks, Chris. Cynthia?
So thank you for this. I've seen it a slightly different in our steering committee earlier, but the one thing that seems to be problematic when you talk about a city is there's so many vehicles that are for construction and things for our cities. Have you covered resources for those kinds of commercial trucks, blah, 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 kind of things that people could find out whether they're electric or having more resources for commercial vehicles is what I'm talking about, rather than residential. And just so you know, it's interesting, the National Geographic has a whole big section on electric vehicle kinds of things. So I'm just wondering if you captured any of the more commercial types of vehicles that can be converted to electric or hydrogen or whatever else. So there's resources.
Yeah, for this page, we really are looking at sort of more residential style transportation, but that is something that we can do as part of the plan is look at the commercial fleet operations.
Malcolm?
Is solar going to be part of this equation in any capacity? Are we looking at, the possibility of, recapturing and regenerating our own so that to bring costs down or to level costs out? Or I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah, I think that's also something that we would have to maybe consider looking at in the plan. I mean, if there are folks with residential rooftop solar facilities, they could use that to store power to charge their own electric vehicles. If there's municipal solar activities happening that might capture that energy, then that's something that we'd have to look at down the road. That might be more up to the jurisdictions individually, but it's something that we can talk about as part of the plan.
Yelm might be ahead of the curve there in that we put in a solar powered electric vehicle charging station at our community center a couple of years ago, thanks to the Port of Olympia and their Small Cities Grant. And that's been very popular and very effective. So I hope to see that expand.
JW, quick question on that. The power is completely provided by the solar panels?
Yeah, it's
wow.
And then it can feed back into the system as well, but not the other way around.
Okay.
Mel?
What about the economics of installing a charging station? Is it a break even or a net expense or a net revenue? I just kind of wondering about that as we look at installing them around our district.
I didn't see anything that there was any revenue generated on it at all.
But is it a break even at best?
Yeah, that would be a hope, I think, yes.
Okay,
Zita?
thank you.
So there's a number of models, Mel, that you can do with that. When the Port of Olympia installed EV chargers at the farmers market, we could choose between revenue generating ones and ones that were lower cost to the public. So there's a number of options, like the Blink costs more money, and the Charge Point is a lower cost to the public. So there are different options.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl?
So Mel, we are working with Energy Northwest. They approached us to install 2 stations at the Salcombe Library in Lewis County, which I think is really ironic because it used to be a gas station. And we're still working out the contracts and so on, but she's also very interested in having libraries in other parts of the 5 counties we serve, as well as she spoke with all the public library directors in the state about this. So public libraries across the state are very interested too. But anyway, so we're working with Energy Northwest. They're a nonprofit municipal corporation.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, and I think Energy Northwest was involved in the Tenino project. I might be wrong about that, but Tenino had a project in development that was solar and charging stations and tied into an emergency response concept. Let me just say it that way, where your electric vehicles are an emergency backup power source. And I don't know where they are on the project. I lost touch with it, but that was a really interesting project in development down there. Also, the Washington State Energy Program has a pretty robust green transportation group who have been working to support public fleets on electrification for a few years now. And it's worth checking in with them when you start thinking about the light commercial and heavy duty vehicles.
Great. We're really moving into the new world. I love it. Even half of our new police vehicles are hybrid vehicles, and the officers love them. Then, of course, it's reducing our costs and our carbon footprint and all of those other good things. And they're cool. So thank you, Scott and Theresa, for updating us. And we can take a look at that website at our leisure and give any comments back to you that we see appropriate.
Please do.
Very good. Then we will move along on our agenda. And we don't have a break scheduled in today because we've had a somewhat shortened agenda, but do take a moment every once in a while. Scott, run down that beach and back up and, sort of Zita, move those cows around a little bit, sort of get some blood flowing. And then we'll jump into the next presentation by Mark and Amy.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully you're seeing the full screen at this point.
Yes.
Good. All right. So this is a report out on one of council's priorities over the past 4 years. And really this planning process is one of the reasons that this has been a council priority over the past 4 years. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to tell you about the Deschutes watershed planning process specifically, but also I'm going to take a little bit of a step back at first to frame this, because we know that a lot of people have not been following this as closely as others. And so what we're talking about here, oops, why aren't you switching? There we go. What we're talking about here relates back to the Hearst decision. And what this is really about are minimum in-stream flows and permit exempt wells. And most all the streams in our state have an established minimum in-stream flow. And the theory behind that is, and it's for the summer months, what is the minimum amount of water that we need to keep in our streams so that they can support salmon habitat? And salmon habitat is used in our state kind of as a proxy of, if your stream is able to continue to support sustainable salmon populations, then you've got that clean, cool water that salmon have to be able to thrive. And so that's the senior water right in all of our watersheds, is that minimum in-stream flow. And the challenge that we have is, for a number of streams, and really all the streams in our county, those minimum in-stream flows were set some time ago. And at the time, they exempted these residential wells. And this is for residential development in the unincorporated areas, the more rural areas of our state. And the minimum in-stream flows for the Deschutes watershed and for many of the other watersheds in the state basically said that it assumed that that permit exempt wells, these wells for residential purposes, wouldn't impact that minimum in-stream flow. We'd be able to accommodate those wells, and they wouldn't have an adverse impact on keeping that water in the summer that we need in the streams to support salmon populations. Then came the Hearst case. And this is what we have talked a lot about over the past handful of years. And this was Washington State Supreme Court ruling that basically overturned that assumption. What Hearst found, what the Hearst ruling found, was that counties could no longer rely on those minimum in-stream flow rules that didn't specifically regulate these permit exempt wells. And that's the case for the Deschutes. That is the case for the Chehalis, for Nisqually. All of those minimum in-stream flow rules had this assumption that these permit exempt wells would not impact these minimum in-stream flow rules. And the Supreme Court, through Hearst, said, no, that doesn't work anymore. And that counties could no longer rely on these minimum in-stream flows that didn't specifically address the permit exempt wells. And in effect, what that ruling did was completely halt residential development in our rural areas, because the local government and governments, and quite honestly, the state government, didn't have the data or tools to individually verify what one house's well would do to that minimum in-stream flow. And so for a little while there, we were stopped because there was kind of not a way out of this. The ruling basically put the counties in a position where they couldn't issue permits and follow the law as established by the state Supreme Court. So the legislature, right after this occurred, was working hard on a solution to this. And the solution came in 2018 in the form of the Stream Flow Restoration Act. And the Stream Flow Restoration Act, the intent was to provide those minimum stream flows to support salmon and provide water for homes for that consumptive use. And the way that it went about doing that is directing the local watersheds to form groups to develop watershed plans to offset the impacts of those permit exempt wells and achieve, and this term's important, net ecological benefit within the watershed. So those plans had to not only account for the water, but actually result in a net benefit over time to salmon habitat. Ecology issued guidance for what does that mean? How do we do that? And the basic process is look at the watershed, delineate the geography, the subbasins within that watershed, estimate how much consumptive water use is expected over the next 20 years. What are the impacts of that water use? What kind of actions can be taken to offset those impacts? And then when taken as a whole, how does the plan achieve that net ecological benefit standard? And it's important to note that there was a time frame on this act. Each watershed had until June 30th, 2021 to complete and unanimously approve the plan. Nisqually and Chehalis watersheds met that deadline. And the reason that we're focusing on the Deschutes watershed today is because it hit a bit of a snag, which we'll tell you about. So for the watershed, a watershed restoration enhancement committee was formed and began meeting in 2018 and met over 30 times in that period up until April of 2021. The law defined a lot of the players that needed to, well, really all the players that needed to be around the table. And so for this watershed, it included the Squaxin Island tribe, the county, the 3 big cities, Thurston PUD, Conservation District. There was a seat for environmental interests, and that was held by Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team, or DIRT, and then State Ecology, State Fish and Wildlife. And there was also a designated seat for the residential building industry, and that was held by the Building Industry Association of Washington. And because this work is so inextricably linked with salmon recovery, and because this was a council priority, we made sure that Amy Hatch-Winnica, our salmon recovery lead entity coordinator for the watershed, was able to attend these meetings, and she served in an ex officio capacity on that group as well. So what I guess to cut to a little bit of the final, this group successfully completed a plan. And how that was done was they started by delineating the subbasins. They came up with 9 subbasins in the Deschutes watershed. And then with some help from TRPC and TRPC data, they projected out how much development do we expect in this watershed over this 20-year planning horizon. And that horizon was 2018 to 2038. And they came up with a little over 2,616 permit exempt wells that projected over the next 20 years. And so the next step of that was, how much water are these 2,600 plus permit exempt wells going to use? And that, well, I always say that, and it's a little bit of a mistake, because consumptive use is the key. And it's more than just the use from the wells. It also includes evaporation, transpiration, so that water that's taken up from plants and then released by plants, and then that water that's consumed by humans, either directly or also watering their lawns, watering agricultural lands. And they came up with this estimate that those 2,600 wells, the most likely estimate was that they would require 435 acre feet per year of water. The group also looked at, well, is there more that we could do so that we could accommodate more consumptive use? And so they looked at this kind of stretch goal of 513 acre feet per year. So after that was done, it was, how are we going to offset that consumption of the 400 and change acre feet of water? And this watershed was incredibly successful in identifying projects to offset. And the plan identifies over 1,300 acre feet of water that could be conserved and brought back to the aquifer. And that's done in a variety of ways. There are a number of projects that are called managed aquifer recharge projects. And basically, all these are places along the watershed where we could store water during rainy events, during peak flow events, store that water so that it has an opportunity to infiltrate and get back to the aquifer, rather than simply running off when it rains, ending up in the stream and going right out to Puget Sound. So it helps us capture more of that water and put it back into the aquifer. They also looked at some of our man-made structures, but the theory is really the same. And it looks at improving Hicks Lake and Donnelly Drive stormwater facilities in particular, and for that same reason, to hold that water a little longer and let it infiltrate back into the aquifer. And then a big part of this offset, actually the biggest part, almost 700 acre feet, is accounted for in one project. And that's Schneider's Prairie, which is a project just east of Tumwater that would connect some historical channels and such, and provide a lot of that watershed, that water storage, and let it infiltrate. I'm going to have Amy Hatchwinica talk about this project and a couple of the others in just one moment after I mention the others, which are, they also identified these category 2 projects. And what these are because remember the standard's net ecological benefit. And so these plans looked at more than just how do we store water and get it back to the aquifer. They also looked at just how do we achieve that net ecological benefit for salmon habitat. And so it identified some of these projects where they couldn't ascribe a certain amount of acre feet of water storage to them, but they certainly contributed to that overall net ecological benefit. And these projects really are a great demonstration of multiple benefits. We do these projects for one reason, and we get a lot of other benefits from them. These are helpful for salmon recovery. They're helpful for our water resources. They're helpful for flood management. They're helpful for property protection. So lots of reasons to do this work. And Amy, if you'd like to talk a little bit about some of these and how they relate to our salmon recovery planning, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Mark. You did a great job. The multitude of benefits, I think, is really what's the most exciting part. All the projects you see on your screen, and then the Schneider's Prairie project. I think, yes, the benefits for fish with regards to giving them an opportunity to seek refuge during high flows. You can imagine if you're a small fish during some of those winter storm events that we have, you're looking for a place to hide. Otherwise, you're going to get flushed down into Puget Sound before you're ready. And so all of these projects are providing space, quiet spaces for small fish to be able to hide and reside, to be able to ride out those big flows. All of these projects include introducing back into the system big trees, so big pieces of wood. We did a really good job back in the 70s of encouraging folks to clean out the watersheds because we didn't realize the importance that all that wood played in our system. And so now we're trying to put it back. And again, that slows the water down and allows it to, not just for fish, but allows the water to soak into the soil, because if you think of it as a wetland, all those are just giant sponges. And as the watershed warms up and as we move towards summer, slowly that water releases out of those sponges back into the stream. So if we can, the more we can basically ask Mother Nature to do the things that she's really good at, it's beneficial. So we don't have to do things like manage aquifer recharges and all those different man-made things. Basically, if we can just re-engage in the places that are already established for that. So these projects are just, they're just re-engaging those old side channels, off channels, oxbows, all those quiet places to get the water for absorption. It also helps with flood abatement. We know that when there's, particularly during the winter storm, when the king tides are happening, that we always worry down, particularly in the city of Olympia, about flooding. And so the more we can absorb the water in the upper portions of the watershed, the more we can alleviate some of that concern in the downstream area. So all of these projects were intended for water quality improvement, flood abatement. They're all the one in particularly in Schneider's Prairie is highlighted in the flood mitigation plan that TRPC puts together. And they're focusing particularly on helping coho and steelhead in the watershed. So
great, thank you. And then the last part of the plan was it included quite a few policy recommendations, and I'm not going to talk through each of these, but there are a couple I want to highlight. And one of them is establishment of the Deschutes Watershed Council. this is something that's been discussed for some time, really even before this watershed planning process, of this idea of having a council to now oversee implementation of this plan and coordinate activities across the watershed. And the reason I bring this up is there has been discussion about that potentially being hosted at Thurston Regional Planning Council if that comes to pass. And so wanted to make sure council was aware of that policy recommendation. And then also want to talk about the in-stream flow rule, because this policy recommendation is what ended up causing this process to not quite hit the finish line. So as I mentioned briefly, the law, the Stream Flow Restoration Act, said that these watershed plans needed to be adopted unanimously. And that's why the law was explicit about who needed to be at the table. And it also, importantly, those were the only folks that could be around that table and have a voting interest. And so with that, those limitations, what success needed to look like was a unanimously approved watershed plan. And the committee met in April of 2021 to vote on the draft plan. So the draft plan was finalized with saying how much water we're going to consume, saying how we could offset that water, policy recommendations to further ensure that we hit the goals of the plan. And then when it came to the meeting in April, they took a vote, and all the parties around the table, aside from one, did vote to approve the plan. The Building Industry Association of Washington did not vote to approve the plan. They provided a letter after that April meeting explaining their position, and they opposed the adoption of the plan because of that policy recommendation to look at the in-stream flow rule. So what that policy recommendation is, I mentioned at the start that we have that minimum in-stream flow rule. I think for our watershed, for this watershed, it's around 1980 is when it was adopted. And this would recommend we open that minimum in-stream flow rule and amend it with the outcomes of this plan. The position of Building Industry Association of Washington was that the plan on its own should be and is sufficient to provide for that net ecological benefit. And the BIAW was concerned that the time, cost, and uncertainty that would be created by reopening the minimum in-stream flow rule was something they couldn't support. And so they voted no. And what that did, luckily, I guess, luckily to some extent, the law anticipated that not all watersheds would necessarily get to a unanimously approved plan. And so the law does have a backstop in it. And that's where we're at right now. And what that backstop is that the Director of Ecology will submit that draft plan that the watershed came up with to the Salmon Recovery Funding Board, the State Salmon Recovery Funding Board, for technical review and their recommendations about whether that plan meets that net ecological benefit standard. Right now, Ecology is working with the Recreation and Conservation Office, RCO. They're the state agency that supports the Salmon Recovery Funding Board. And so Ecology is working with RCO right now on a memorandum of understanding for how that review by the SURF board would be conducted. So once they have that MOU complete, and once that the plan goes through that review of by the Salmon Recovery Funding Board, next the Director of Ecology will adopt the plan, and then within 6 months initiate rulemaking to codify that watershed plan. And after that April meeting, both the Squaxin Island Tribe and the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team submitted letters to Ecology urging prompt review by the Salmon Recovery Funding Board, adoption of the plan, and the associated rulemaking. And one of the reasons we wanted to make sure to bring this to council now is we are in a place of a bit of uncertainty for this watershed, and that has some real world implications, real world costs. When the legislature passed the Stream Flow Restoration Act, they also put in law their intent to provide $300 million over 15 years to implement these watershed plans. And up to this point, they've made good on that, which that works out to 40 million a biennium. And that is what the legislature has provided for the past 2 biennium to implement the Stream Flow Restoration Act. In fact, I talked with Ecology this week, and they're expecting to have another round of solicitation for projects starting in November or December. And the issue for this watershed is without an approved plan, there are points that the other watersheds will get that the Deschutes watershed will not be able to get. And so the projects within the Deschutes watershed are not going to be as competitive for these stream flow restoration grants until that plan is approved. And right now, there's no timeline for when that Salmon Recovery Funding Board review will occur, and therefore when this process will be complete, and when these projects are still eligible to apply. We could still put in for these projects, but they won't be as competitive because they will not get the extra points for being part of an approved stream flow restoration plan. And so wanted to make sure, and that's where we're at right now. We're in this little place of uncertainty as Ecology and RCO work on that MOU to provide for the Salmon Recovery Funding Board review of the plan. And so wanted to make sure council members were aware of this. We're going to continue tracking this very closely. We'll report back as we get more certainty on how this review process is going to occur. But right now, it does put these projects at risk to receive that funding. And so with that, I will stop sharing. And also, I know we have some folks around the table that were there. First, I got to stop sharing. So I'll stop talking because I can't multitask. All right. I know we have folks around the table that were their organizations representatives to this process. And so I invite them to also speak to how we got to where we're at and what they see as where we're going in this process. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. I see that Chris Stearns has his hands up, then Cynthia.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to add 2 or 3 different points that weren't covered in this. First of all, the Deschutes Basin is not a treaty basin. Historically, the fish didn't get over Overton waterfalls. So since it's an artificial run, it doesn't get awarded the same treatment as a wild run of salmon by the Salmon Recovery Funding Board. That's been historically the case. The Squaxins don't like it for obvious reasons, but it is the reality of the situation. Secondly, nothing was made mention of what caused the Hearst suit, which was asking for water use efficiencies. Any big city in our county knows that we have to show we're efficiently using water over time more effectively and reducing the consumption per person in our cities, or in the case of the PED, our customers. And we have accomplished that. We can prove it too through our consumption patterns. That was part of the lawsuit, that nobody was doing any water use efficiencies off of the exempt wells, and it was like an open spout. And our county has a lot of exempt wells. It has more than any other county in Western Washington. So it is a concern to us because we want to see more people on Group A systems, and using water more efficiently over time. Unfortunately, that means charging for high use at a different rate than lower uses, but it does get the job done. And the last thing I'll comment on is, I noticed the highest amount of exempt wells going in was in Johnson Point. Many of you know that the water that lands on our county through rainfall is higher on the western side of the county and lower on the eastern side of the county. So Johnson Point is not a great aquifer recharge area. And if they're putting a lot of exempt wells in there, they're going to hit a lot of saltwater intrusion very soon. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. Cynthia and Zita?
Yes, I actually sat on the committee for those 2 years. And so we were somewhat blindsided. There was plenty of opportunity to have committee members speak up and oppose certain kinds of issues that they disagreed with. So it kind of came as a surprise. However, Lacey's project, the Hicks Lake project, we're prepared to move forward if we can get funding and stuff. So that's a good thing, and it'll benefit Lacey as well. So I just, I guess being on the committee for 2 years, that was pretty frustrating to have it shut down the last day. That's all I can say about it.
Thank you. Zita?
Mark, I want to thank you for that very informative overview. I was not on that committee. This is really important work. I know the last time they went around for this RIA process, it was not unanimously approved for different reasons. And it's important that it get done. So thank you for all the good research your team has done and for bringing everybody together. And I'm glad that Ecology is able to advocate for this plan to the appropriate boards. I've sent you another resource by email that may be useful.
Great, thank you.
Oh, very good. That was really an informative presentation. Thank you, Mark.
Well, I'm noticing Cynthia had one more piece.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Sorry, I forgot to add. So if you know what Mark said, it was 1980 when the water flow rules were put in place for the Deschutes. That's 40 years. And in that time, of course, as you know, there's climate change, there's been more development and stuff. So it seems to me that all really old rules like that should be at least looked at and see if they need to be updated. And I think that was, at least in my viewpoint, being ex-Fish and Wildlife, is an actual good thing to look at to see whether or not it's still appropriate. So I actually kind of agreed with the Squaxin. Last time it was shot down, it was by the Squaxin tribe. They walked off the out of the meeting back then, but this time they were stayed with it, and so I guess that's the issue, is if they actually agreed to the plan, it was a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia, don't unmute or don't mute yourself back just yet. We're going to go to outside committee reports. Do you have anything from the Puget Sound Council?
Oh, I do. So we recommended the executive board. We approved the administrative procedures for regional centers. We had a discussion on a race equity and advisory committee update. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Racial equity and equity advisory committee. I kept saying, why would equity be in there twice? And as is like most committees and other organizations, this is taking a precedence because it's so important. We also had a discussion on the regional housing strategy. And then they gave information on relaunching the Regional Transit Oriented Development Committee and where they're at. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you. Before I go on, Mark, I kind of rushed us onto the agenda. Were we finished? Did you have any other closing comments?
Nope. The only thing, and I did mention it, is just we certainly will be bringing back to council as we hear more about how this progresses.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to Doug. Do you have a report for us from TPB? You have to unmute yourself. There you go. Still muted. There you go.
Okay.
You're good.
I was hoping my last report would be some sort of a blockbuster as a way of saying goodbye, but unfortunately that was not the case. They literally had two things on the agenda. One was a discussion of transportation performance measures for the year 2050, and a lot of detail and so on that, but I won't recount it. The second one was they broke into groups to discuss racial equity issues, and quite frankly, the group that I was in, nobody had anything to say except Cory Booker, who was a former mayor of a community up there, and he inserted some housing issues. And I spoke and I recounted my experience as and the lessons learned. I was the first white business owner in Seattle many years ago to hire a black machinist and thereby break the color barrier of the Lily White Machinist Union. So there's some lessons learned from that I passed on to that group. And in any case, that concludes my report, Mr. Chair, and I thank you for the time to do it.
And we certainly thank you, Doug. In fact, we have a little bit more to say than that. Staff has done a good job of helping distill down a very, very long career and participation in the regional council that I'd like to read for everybody's benefit. So Doug DeForest, and you don't have to stand, Doug.
Thanks. Well, I block out the plaque, which is right behind me. You see it over there.
Okay, nice plaque, yeah. So Doug, a Seattle native, let me move this over so I don't want you to think I'm reading this from my mind. Doug DeForest, a Seattle native, Doug got a scholarship to Yale, where he earned a degree in international relations. While at Yale, he enlisted in the Marines, hoorah, but the program he signed up for lost funding and he was honorably discharged. He later joined and served in the Navy. After military service, Doug received his MBA from Harvard Business School. After working for a while in New York City, he came back to the Pacific Northwest and owned a metal fabrication shop in Seattle, which he referenced. Doug worked with the union to promote programs in the Black community that trained people for machinist work. And he believes himself to be the first person to hire a Black machinist in Seattle, a distinction he is proud of and as he cares deeply about diversity and equity. Doug then moved to Olympia to manage a plastic bag factory in the Mottman industrial area. He then served 15 years as the executive director of Olympia Master Builders. During his tenure there, membership grew from 126 to over 1,000 and it became the third largest in the state. In 1998, John O'Callaghan and Ann Bergman championed Doug's appointment to the Transportation Policy Board, 1998, as business representative. This was controversial at the time to have the building industry at the regional transportation table. Doug has served on Transportation Policy Board ever since, the longest tenure of any TPB member. Some of the TRPC projects of which Doug is most proud include Vision Reality, the Urban Corridors Task Force, and Sustainable Thurston. Doug has consistently been a very active member, volunteering for the deep dive issues, bringing that valuable business perspective, strategic thinking, and continuous engagement, as evidenced by his unparalleled tenure on TPP. This region has forever benefited from Doug DeForest's commitment to making the Thurston region a better place to live and work. And I think we could all give Doug a virtual round of applause and a heartfelt thank you for that work. You have been inspirational.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank all of the committee members for their politeness and coordination with me. I'd also like to thank the staff, and particularly Berlina Lucas, who always made sure that I got all the information that I needed and so on. So thank you to the staff as well.
Yes, Mark, any other comments there?
Just to note that Doug's final meeting will be the Transportation Policy Board meeting on the, I don't have a 15th, I believe. Third, it is the 15th. Thank you.
13th, no,
13th. Sorry about that. And that's then where we'll get more of an opportunity to thank Doug and give him the send off that he deserves for all his years of service. I know, I just want to say personally, that level of commitment inspires me as someone who works in public service. And Doug, you did it as a volunteer. So I just can't thank you enough.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Cynthia?
So I just want to say, because I've known Doug for thousands of years, it seems like we're both older, but he has been a great mentor. When sometimes just sitting down waiting for a meeting and talking to him, I've learned so much, and I just really want to say thank you.
Welcome.
Clark.
Thank you. I just, a couple of things that weren't mentioned in Doug's biography, and I want to shout out, especially in this time when we're so interested in having statesman-like behavior and good government, right? And not having crazy, unnecessary divisions. When Doug was at the local master builders, two things really blew me away. The first was I was part of a group of house framers trying to stop working for cash under the table. And we thought it was just going to be war coming in. And we thought we knew everything. Doug already did. He sat us down at his desk and said, well, boys, how are we going to take this on? And got us audience with different contractors. And anyhow, it was an amazing, generous gesture, I don't know, 30 years ago. And then more recently, he had led our master builders to lead the way for the state in adopting green building and energy efficiency standards. And our local Olympia chapter really pushed green building for the whole region. And that was Doug's push also. So I just want to thank you for being a reasonable voice in crazy times. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Clark. But by the way, it took 3 years to get the green building across. Look at it now.
Everything in its time. It seems like you got out of that plastic bag business just in the nick of time, Doug.
Yeah, well, that was 20 years ago.
You're a man ahead of your time. Thank you so much for all of that. You know, I was curious, Mark, are there any staff members that are still here that that predate Doug?
Yeah, Karen was there.
Yeah. But that,
can't be
and
many.
I think Dave Reed might as well, but there wouldn't be many.
Yeah,
No.
he joined before. He was on all the committees I've ever been on. So
Yep. Yeah, he was here slightly before I was, a couple of years. In fact, Sarah will probably be coming to Transportation Policy Board, but I can remember talking to her about this controversial nomination and process to have the building industry. Remember, this is pretty new into GMA, and the building industry, those evil people that are actually going to build the communities we want, we're inviting them to the table. So I think one of the things our chair mentioned earlier in the meeting about how we come together as a group and move things forward. And I think Doug is a really good example of that, of bringing in what are often conflicting voices and having rational conversations.
yeah, I would second that. Doug served on a lot of the committees, the forecast and buildable lands and things like that throughout my tenure at TRPC. And always brought a lot to the table and just always volunteered for everything. He's just been such a great asset to the agency and our work program.
Set the bar pretty high for the rest of us there, Doug.
Thank you.
Now, that the fact that you're not going to be serving on TPB anymore does not mean that you can't attend our meetings. And we have so few people come and do comment to the council.
Well, you got to put some visitor chairs up in that new conference room you've got. But I appreciate that, and I'm not going anywhere. So if there's any way I can be of assistance, of course, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much, Doug. Mark, this leads us into your executive director report.
All right. So we've talked quite a bit about the transportation priorities survey that we have ongoing. And I want to tell you about one more piece that we've got trying to get some more feedback on that. Right now, we're at about 3,900 responses on that. So and that doesn't count the paper surveys that we've been sending out to targeted areas, really to try and capture some of those underrepresented populations in surveys historically. And so we've still got more work to do. But I also want to tell you about later today, I'll be sending a request to the superintendents of our school districts where we put together, and I want to give a shout out to Katrina Van Every, our staff person. We've got a team working on this, and yet Katrina has taken this and just really run with it, and she is turning over every rock trying to find ways to get more input on this so that we can make this this information as meaningful as possible. And what I'm telling you about is another example of that, which is we put together a brief, just 4-question survey to go out to high school students. And so I'll be sending the request to the superintendents to distribute this very brief survey to the high school students in our region, because we want to make sure that we're also getting our new users or newer users of our road transportation system, but also just get the perspective of what do they want to see our transportation system look like and how it provides for us in the future. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work with the school districts to get this out to high school students. We're currently advertising for either an assistant or an associate planner, as you'll hear more about next meeting, and the subcommittee will hear about in just a little bit. We've got a lot of work on our plate for 2022. And so we're advertising now. We want to make sure we've got the resource so that we can deliver on the work program that we'll be talking about with you next month. And also just a note that thanks to Michael Cade, I've been invited to present at the Real Estate Forum next Thursday, and I'll be presenting on kind of the relationship between transportation and real estate, and also the I-5 work in particular. And so thankful to get that opportunity to get the word out a little more broadly. That's what I've got for you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that heads up. And by the way, all of our planners and assistant planners are terrible people, and you would never want them to work for you.
So noted.
I'm fearful. Thank you for that report. We're now at member check-in. Is there anything going on in your community or in your organization that you'd like to share? I see Cynthia's hands up.
Just briefly, I actually, it's related to what Mark was saying. You might also have staff send it to the Lacey Youth Council for their input on transportation. And what Lot is doing is discussing about succession planning, and I mean, there's other major projects, but that is the big issue right now.
Thank you. Chris, then Carolyn.
I just want to let people know that you can put out, there's a survey either available on the Thurston PUD website or through Facebook, you can get it, access to it, regarding internet connectivity in our county. And we've already had 1,000 responses. We're trying to get that up to 3,000 or so by November. When we've got the survey done, you will be able to see the results on our webpage, and we will proceed as a board in terms of how we choose to go about, with the data that we've got to provide wholesale fiber service, which is based on an open access network, which is competitive, not monopolistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn, then Clark.
Hey, well, briefly from Intercity Transit, we had service enhancements that went into effect this month, and that is increased service to 72% of what it was before the pandemic hit us. And in a related development, you may recall that the Zero Fare project, it was a 5-year demonstration project, kicked in on January 1st, 2020, just 2 months before everything kind of went south. So we agreed at our last authority meeting to extend the 5-year project for another couple of years to get a true look at how that is working for the organization. And the other quick thing I wanted to share with you is that we are continuing to try to hire more operators, and train them, which will enable us to gradually keep expanding service. It may be, depending on how COVID goes, we were hoping March, but probably more likely next September before we get there. And that's barring unforeseen obstacles there. So thanks. Great to see everybody today.
Thank you. Clark,
All right.
and then Cheryl.
Thanks. So imagine if a city decided as the hub of the county to close the main drag, 4th Avenue, willingly for 3 months. We're working on our Franklin Street rebuild. Washington and Franklin, the two South Streets at the core of downtown, are getting the complete street treatment. Concrete streets with sidewalks separated by a planting strip, new utilities in the street. And in an innovation, we used our 1% for art to hire the artist at the beginning and have her work with the planning team and with the contractor, which I think has really helped to make the whole project a little more elegant. Nonetheless, we're seeing the benefit of a street network right now, as there are alternative routes to get through downtown. And we're so excited about closing 4th Avenue for 3 months that when this is done, we're going to close the westbound roads state for the next 3 months. Unless it's too muddy and gummy, then we'll wait till the spring for state. But anyhow, that's the biggest transportation and development adventure in Olympia right now, is remaking the very hub of downtown. So.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up. Cheryl, then Hillary.
Thanks. So in addition to what Mark said about the survey, we put out to over 68,000 people in the 5-county area who either live in Thurston or drive through Thurston. So that went out yesterday. That's in relation to the transportation survey. So Chris, we need to talk about doing the same thing when we put out the October newsletter, e-newsletter to people. We should talk about including your survey as well. And then the second thing I want to talk about briefly is we have signed a 3-year lease in Hawks Prairie at 8205 Martin Way, Suite B, next to a bus stop for a library, a demonstration library like the one at the mall. That is a popular collection, smallish, it's about 2,600 square feet. And we hope to open early in the new year.
Nice.
Thank you. Hillary, then Debbie.
Yeah, a little bit of good news and challenges. So if you drive by Olympia High School, you'll see that our new solar array is installed, and that is a partnership with Puget Sound Energy. It's an opportunity for us to use our considerable rooftop real estate to generate some clean energy. And it's also a great learning opportunity for students. And eventually when volunteers can come back into our buildings, the community as well. And one thing I wanted to share just by way of understanding for those of you who don't have children in our system right now is that our school systems are facing historic supply chain and labor disruptions. And so what that looks and feels like is the same as intercity transit is not able to expand their routes. We are struggling to move our students to and from school, which is a basic right. And we across the country have had a school bus driver shortage from before the pandemic, and it is exceptionally high right now. So I'm sure that my colleagues from North Thurston and Tumwater are sort of like pulling their hair out, and maybe Mel is going to go drive a bus in 5 minutes. So I would just encourage you to give encouragement, kindness, and send positive vibes to those folks who are just working so hard to try and get our kids safely to and from school, which they are entitled to. The other supply chain disruption that's happening is really connected to the report that we received last month, which is we have historic disruptions to our food supply chain. And we're lucky that in Olympia School District, we have put away a lot of our homegrown food and we can supplement with that. But please keep that in mind that like we are feeding all children this year, which is fantastic, but there is not enough food in the supply chain for us to get food to all children. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. The other thing I wanted to just flag is that we at the Olympia School District will be seeing a proposal for a safety and technology levy, which will be renewing our old levy this next year. And that was something that allowed us to pivot to remote learning really quickly because we had already planned to be a one-to-one district, and we had invested in a disproportionately large number of hotspots. So we had hotspots left over when no one could get them. We had already purchased them before the pandemic. We, as a part of that work, we are doing a system-wide technology survey of our families and households. And I know that our chief information officer has been having some conversations with PUD and other partners. I know that many people are very interested in supporting children and families and getting access to internet. And so as you're thinking about crafting your own surveys, I would really encourage you to reach out to your local school districts and see what kind of really deep dive data they may already be collecting from the children they serve, rather than trying to re-engineer a new survey to do that. So as you're thinking about that, please, please, please reach out to us because we may already have the solution for the data that you are looking for with a lot of really good demographic information as well.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Malcolm.
I understand that Hillary, in some cases, some states have had to call in National Guard members to drive school buses to get kids to and from schools.
Yep, it's real serious. We have not had to do that yet, but our kids are experiencing huge long bus rides because there just aren't enough drivers, is just the plain and simple truth. And our drivers are like really stressed out, right? Because people are irritated that their kids are on the bus for a long time. So if you know a school bus driver, like give them a hug or an elbow bump, buy them a cup of coffee. They are working so hard and they are not getting the love that they deserve. So please reach out to a bus driver today.
Mel, did you want to tag in on this thread?
Yes, I will. And one of the things with the lack of bus drivers has led to is a mile-long backup at our schools for parents picking up and dropping off. It's incredible how long that line of cars is, and the efforts that our school administrators and staff are going through to try to move cars through as quickly as possible. Black Lake Elementary, it's backed up down to JJ's grocery store at the stop sign, and there's no shoulder on Black Lake. So these cars are parked in the travel lane, and the buses that are trying to get into the school are in that backup as well. And so they're delayed getting to the bus pick. It's just a mess, and it's almost every school in our district. So yeah, if you guys have a CDL license, we could use you.
Thanks, Mel. Debbie, then Zita.
Thank you. Mine will be fairly short. As all council members know, when you get towards the end of the year, you start adopting all of the programs and projects that you've been working on all year. So since our last meeting, the city has adopted our housing action plan, and this is going to be a living document. So this has been a lot of hard work. And so I'm very happy that we have this in place, and we can continue to update and refine it, but we at least have it on the books now and can start moving forward.
Great, thank you. Zita?
So at the Port of Olympia, you've probably heard that the ferry is in trouble again and it's supposed to move. So we'll see how that works out. We don't have an urgent need for that berth because we don't have a lot of extra business at the marine terminal. The airport is going through a master planning process that's mostly funded by the FAA. So if you're interested in learning more about the future of the airport or participating in the process, just go to www.portolympia.com and you're welcome to participate. The Panattoni Mega Warehouse project in Tumwater's urban forest undeveloped area was supposed to have a public hearing last month. That was postponed, and I trust that Tumwater will let us know when that public hearing is rescheduled. Right, Tumwater? Any news on that?
I would have to check with staff and the mayor. I don't have specifics.
Yeah, I don't think it's been rescheduled, but there's supposed to be a public hearing on that project at some point. And thank you,
Great.
Tumwater, for doing that.
And in news from the prairie, we rededicated Cochrane Park yesterday. Cochrane Park, you may know or may not know, is although it's also the #1 wedding venue in Yelm, it's our wastewater treatment facility, tertiary treatment spot where the water is further polished and then reintroduced to the aquifer and some to the atmosphere through transpiration of the plants that are in the ponds. It's a beautiful facility. It was the first of its kind in Western Washington 27 years ago. And because it needed some repair and refurbishment upgrades, we can now handle 3 times the capacity of wastewater that will be generated by our treatment plant. And which was, looking forward to the growth that we may or may not have, depending on whether we're granted the water rights that we've been waiting for quite a while. Malcolm?
Just real quick, in Lacey/Thurston County, Carpenter and Mullen Road project is coming to an end, looking really good. There's sidewalk all the way from, Timberline High School all the way down past Carpenter Road. So now, the level of safety for kids walking to and from school is very much increased. There's lighting, there's sidewalk, there's everything there. And, I know we've talked about, this body has discussed, the sidewalks and lack of sidewalks that we have in the community. And I think a lot of us were in favor of, starting at schools and moving out towards residential areas. So it's happening and it's looking really good.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Very nice once again to see that virtually every member had some input today during our discussions, very engaged. So thank you all for another great TRPC meeting. Thanks to staff for all their support. Mark wants to say one more thing.
How could you tell?
I can tell.
Just a reminder that those who have volunteered to be on our work program committee will be meeting afterwards. I'm taking a lead from Chair Foster. I'm sure we'll give folks 10 minutes before we decide to reconvene. And so as you close this out, Chair, if you could just tell us when you'd like that committee back. And we're going to be using this same Zoom meeting for that.
Thank you. And for, my last comment is those who volunteered to be on the work program committee, thanks for stealing my thunder, Mark. We're going to meet, no, I'm just kidding, right after this, but let's give ourselves, 12 minutes So would that be okay? We'll meet back here at 10:40. So we'll leave this room open, and I'm sure Berlina will put some nice music on in the background or something, and we'll see you back here shortly. Everybody else have a great month. See you in November.